Yep.
Yeah.
All right. First up at 7 o'clock, we have a public hearing for zoning map change on Charlie Crossing Road from Village District to Community Business. Pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Charter Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held by a Zoom meeting ID 211-293-2257, an in-person meeting at 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507 on the request of James Aquinas, PO Box 612, Yarmouthport, Mass. 02675 to consider amending Charlton zoning map for land located at Charlie Crossing Road, herein identified in Charlton Assessors Map 34A, Block C, Lot 1.9, that is known to be proposed Lot 3 as shown on plan by McClure Engineering dated 1/28/2022. The community business. The property will contain approximately 88,155 square feet. Specific information in the general guidelines for participation by members of the public in the Town of Charlton website at www.townofcharlton.net. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting remotely may do so in the following manner. Video participation, https://zoom.us/211. Meeting ID 211-293-2257, phone access 1-646-558-8656. The complete text and map of the proposed zoning map amendment is available for inspection at the planning board office in the town clerk's office during regular business hours. The application is also posted on the town website under planning board. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. What do you say, Pico?
Yeah,
This presentation.
Pete, I stole your thunder, but would you like to present the application?
Sure. So basically, the property on Charlie Crossing Road proposed to be split into 3 separate lots through an A&R plan. The northernmost lot, which abuts the community business district, they're requesting a zone change through the community business district for the use of a vet hospital or vet clinic, which is prohibited in the current village district. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Board have any comments or questions? Okay.
This is Bill Fontaine. I'll re-ask my.
Go right
It's
ahead.
a redo here. I was just wondering what was on the property at the moment. Are there any facilities, buildings, roads on all 3 parcels?
It's currently an undeveloped parcel. There's basically nothing but woods right now.
Thank you. This is John Smith from the planning board. I had asked for the lots, the division lines that are drawn on the plans now would be what you're looking for an A&R down the road for subdivision of that whole property.
So we plan on doing the A&R soon. I think, forget what Randy had told us, but if we get it in by a certain date, it'll get on the April agenda, April 8th, I want to say maybe. So it should be coming in within the next week or 2.
And the lines on the plan right now represent what you'll be looking at.
Correct. Yeah, they shouldn't change at all. So all those lots have adequate frontage. That frontage will stay the same as we show it, and they all have adequate area. And that lot that would change zones will meet the zoning requirements of both the village currently as well as the community business when it changes.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right, this time I'd like to open the public hearing up to the public. If you do wish to speak or ask a question, please say your name and address. Anyone from the public have a question? All right, hearing none, seeing none.
I do have a
Oh,
question.
go right ahead.
Steve Corona, 17 Old Worcester Road.
Yep.
Is there a reason that we're just taking this one lot, right? We're looking at this one lot right now and not that whole probably crossing area for community business?
It's at the property owner's discretion if they want to do a zone change, and this property owner is going through the process of that because they have a customer that wants to purchase a parcel from them. So he's modifying it, and the community business there's an abutting piece that's already community business already. So it's at the property owner's discretion what they want to do. That's the
It just seems.
Correct.
It seems like we're gonna be coming back to this 2 or 3 more times.
well, it depends if, yeah, it depends what the use is.
Yeah.
There's if a customer of the property wants to develop it themselves, what they want to put there. So, all right, thanks. Lee.
Just to kind of
Yeah,
add to that, it's like the board's intent is to look at our zoning map for hopefully for our fall town meeting, to see where we can make, changes on a larger scale instead of doing all the piecemeal type stuff that we have been doing. However, we just, from the timing standpoint, we wanted to get the existing changes from the bylaws done now, and then hopefully at the fall town meeting that we would have a proposal for map changes that will look at all this, so we're not just doing bits and pieces here and there to do a full schedule change. That's our hopes.
any other questions? All right. We have a motion to close the public hearing. Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, it's unanimous. All right, do we have a motion to approve the zoning map change on Charlie Crossing Road from Village District to Community Business, which would be lot 34A, block C, lot 1.9.
I'll make a motion that we recommend it for approval at the town meeting.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Yep. All right,
Thank you.
yep, thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All right, next up, 7:05, public hearing, GAIR LLC, 508 International Sunset City Site Plan, proposed modification to increase the use on the property to year round, to allow activities on property 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At 219 Brookfield Road, in accordance with sections 200-3.2, 200-7.1D, and 200-7.2 of the Charlton zoning bylaw, the town public planning board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 at 7:05 PM in person and via Zoom meeting ID number 211-293-2257 on the request of 508 Base LLC, 219 Brookfield Road, Charlton, Mass. 01507 for site plan application to increase the use of the property to year round and to allow activities on the property 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This site contains 6 parcels totaling approximately 150 acres. The property currently is used for multiple outdoor recreational activities. The site is located at 219 Brookfield Road. The property IDs are assessor maps, blocks, and lots 15B-6, 15B-9.1, 29A-9, 29A-8, 29A-8, 29A-6, and 29A-3, and is zoned agricultural. Specific information, general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Charlton website at www.townofcharlton.net. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen and or watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Video participation, https://zoom.us/zoom.211-293-2257, meeting ID 211-293-2257, phone access 1-646-558-8656. Copies of the site plan application are available for inspection at the planning board office and the town clerk's office during regular business hours. The application is also posted on the town website on the planning board. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. All right, we all have the a big packet in front of us, with all the information, and applicant is here who's wishing to do that. Russell, would you like to give a quick overview as far as what you're planning on doing here? That'd be great. Thank you.
We come before the board this evening, clarify our hours and days of operation with a request to modify the approved site plan. As many of you know, there was settlement agreement between 508 and the town of Charlton, May 2018, that changed many of the things from the original site plan dated August 2015. The business changed the nature of operation from simply a motocross facility to a sports, entertainment, and recreation facility for gainful profit. With this approved change, many uses are listed that are wintertime activities that clearly point to year-round operations of the facility. With this approved change, it is easy to see how our hours would change from originally 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 24 hours a day, when many activities of sports, entertainment, and recreation will occur and have occurred at the property, such as overnight silent dance parties, Spartan overnight adventure race, Tough Mudder overnight adventure race, night disc golf, silent drone fireworks displays, haunted theme events, movie nights, just to name a few. We have operated our facility at night to host many activities over the past 4 years, even through COVID-19, without effect on the community, and continue to do so with the help of clarification from the board. Further on that, we've been operating since the settlement agreement with the clarification of the settlement agreement that our hours did change at that point. It wasn't until last fall when someone came in with misinformation and limited it to our planner that Mr. Meskis and myself said, what we should do to further clarify this is come before the board, have a discussion, which we did at some point in time last fall. And then said, or it was early winter, we said the best thing to do for everyone involved is have a public hearing. Again, reinforce and clarify everything that was discussed in the settlement agreement and for the nature of the business today, and move forward with clarity. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Russell. Are there any questions from the board or comments? I know that we have a lot of, the board has received multiple emails and inquiries about this proposed
Yeah,
to expand to the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation.
I didn't receive the bulk of them until after 4 p.m. today, so
Yeah,
I wasn't able to forward and share them with the board prior to the meeting, so.
that's fine.
So for clarification, your request is to change it for full-time year-round operation and hours of operation. And does that trying to remember back, what's it been, 5 years? It was, okay.
Yeah, I think in the application part, I made copies of the old decisions so that it shows what the planning board decisions were from 2015 and also the 2018 decision over in there.
So is the request to change hours for all activities?
The request is to change the hours of the facility
Okay,
because there is no possible way to sit down and come up with a master list of when certain activities could take place, when certain activities couldn't take place. What we believe is that at this point in time, the planning board has carried its torch and passed it on to other members of the community, meaning police department, the board of health, other places that maintain the standards in our community for any complaints or issues that might arise. Naturally, the planning board isn't suited to deal with those issues. And it's not part of their purview at this time. So that is why this simplifies and clarifies things. And that was the intent of the settlement agreement.
Okay, so the question was for all activities or low impact, medium impact, or high impact, which for all activities is what they're talking. Do you have lighting on the facility? No. Okay. So I'm kind of looking at two issues here. So, you know, for year-round reuse, I think there's a lot of activities on here that were approved that it's tough to do hockey sports and ice skating in the summer. So I would just assume that those were winter activities, and if they were approved on here, the intention was to open year-round. So there's two different issues as far as I see it. As far as the hours of operation, do you plan to run motocross, mud bog racing, track racing at night?
There'd be no possibility.
That's why I'm saying, is that something that we can limit to daylight hours within the agreement?
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
And also, regardless, any facility has to follow the Mass
Sure.
DEP decibel levels,
Mhm.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, well, I'm
So, yeah. you just
I have
need
a
to-
question about the decibel levels. I'm in a butter.
Oh, it's not open to the public yet. It's a discussion amongst the board right now. When it's open to the public, I'll announce that, okay?
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
So, I mean, according to this agreement, right now, motorized activities, unless I'm reading this wrong, are limited between 8 AM and 8 PM. I don't, what other limitations for hours were in here? I don't,
So the original limit on the hours from 8 a.m. were for our facility that was going to only operate from April until November.
okay,
So we had no intention of running a motocross facility on frozen ground, which is out of season. That's just the way it operates. Don't get me wrong, sometimes the season starts a little bit earlier, sometimes it ends a bit later, as we did last year, and it's probably has this year. We haven't opened this year yet, just because of the weather and the doing improvements. But that was our intent at that point in time. Today, naturally, after the business has changed, our hours of operation have changed as well.
Through the board.
Go right ahead, Bill.
This is Bill Fontaine. I think our zoning enforcement official has done a great job of summarizing the findings here for us. Thank you, Kurt. A lot of this has been discussed for many years, you know, and all the way back to the 2018 settlement agreement. I'm in agreement. I think that year-round operations, 24 hours a day, makes the most sense. There are already limitations on noise levels, and there is remedy for traffic, whatever else around the property. And I think it would be hard to run the high-impact activities anyway during the middle of the night. So you're probably not going to do those activities anyway. It may not be within the planning board's real purview to start addressing each activity, assigning months and hours for each of those activities. It would just be crazy to do something like that. It would be impossible to forecast what those activities are. I mean, I'd be in support just to simplify this, clear it up, and let this facility operate 24/7, you know, around 365 days a year.
Actually, maybe a little more clarification on that. They do, for certain things, need an event permit, correct me if I'm wrong, and you're limited to 15 events a year that you have to get a permit through the Board of Selectmen.
that's for parking extensions. In the field. So
Okay.
big events, I think, is limited to beyond the 300 and something spots you have. Anything beyond that would require.
Oh,
we're
something's
limited
beyond
to
what's
15.
the available parking on the property. Okay.
Limited to 15. Big events.
And then the other events need whatever
alcohol permit, a gambling permit, those would have to come before the board again anyway, and those
Board of
would
Selectmen,
declare
yeah.
our Board of Selectmen.
Anything associated with live entertainment, same way, music bands covered by the Board of Selectmen. Who's not, that's not anything that we're permitted or approved for at this point in time. Not anything that we're doing.
Is camping on the list?
It is not.
It is not on the list.
We are in discussions with the health director about campground. We will be submitting our license within the next several weeks. And that brings up a very good point of if you were to say, well, your business hours are only from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now we don't open up campground on the property. I really I don't know how that would conflict with other permits. I mean, that's a question. Rick can answer. But it just creates a whole beehive of this unknown. And I certainly wouldn't know how to deal with that question. Again, it doesn't bring clarity to the situation. Say, you can do this activity, but not this one until 8 o'clock and this one until 11. Well, I think they were over there doing this and I saw them doing that. And, again, just not clear. It's ambiguous. So.
Through the board, just
Go
to
right ahead.
comment, just to
Yeah.
get in front of this a little bit, just to notify the public, the planning board really has no say with any conservation issues, has no say with any existing complaints about noise or traffic. There are other departments within the town that handle those things. So it's not the place of the planning board to define what the sound limits are of the facility or the traffic, if there is a hazard of traffic, or if there is a violation or not of conservation. That's not, this is the wrong meeting for those scenarios to be discussed.
Thank you, Bill. John or Jean, you have any comments or questions?
Right, what we're looking at here is the conditions or the approval from the planning board. Do we know what was revised at the?
What date is yours? Because there's one from July 25th, 2018, and then the original from August 13th, 2015. Because the July 2018 was a modification.
This is the original. Sorry, that.
Yeah, the original's 2015,
Yeah.
modifications 2018.
Yeah. I think this is the modification. This is the issue one.
July 25th, 2018.
No, that's one, okay, that's what I got right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is the original. This is the modification.
correct. Go right ahead, John.
So the original said 8 to 8. From 8 to
April 1st, to October 31st.
and the amended on 18. The settlement didn't say anything about the hours. So otherwise it referred back to the 15th. The original that said 8 to 8 because it didn't address it. So it made, because the last line said anything else that was not discussed in that settlement refer back to the original.
So that's why we're here, because it's not clear. And really, as was discussed and Don pointed out earlier, when you talk about wintertime activities, we know that that may not happen in summer. When you're talking about ice. So the intent, and accessing 6 times a night. The intent is what we look at and say, what was the intent of the settlement agreement? Again, clarification. So the hours to make it so that sports, entertainment, recreation, similar and like uses can take place in this facility.
Sure.
Go right ahead.
Kurt, is campgrounds available to use on this property?
So campgrounds are allowed with a Y in any zone in the town of Charlotte. So there is no site plan approval, there is no oversight, special permit. It's allowed by right. However, there are other authorities, DEQ and Board of Health, that have oversight over campgrounds and what facilities are provided. in campgrounds.
The original application had a campground and then it was removed. So that was removed from the original.
So that was removed.
But since it's a Y in the chart, like Kurt said, it's allowed by right.
But it was removed because they didn't want to go through the expense of facilities and sewage and that's the one for the campground.
It is within the purview of other agencies, as Kurt said, the DEP in particular requires a MEPA permit, so that's something that we wouldn't be involved in, but the applicant would have to do that.
Anything else, Jim?
Go ahead. Power, did somebody ask about power to the site?
I did not ask about power, but I did ask about lighting. So I know power.
Have you ever been out? Okay, so when you drive in, off Brookfield Road, you're coming about 3,000 feet without power, before you get to where we have the start of the track. Okay. That's in Charlton. If you were to come in from Sturbridge on the other side, you come in about 1,000 feet closest power.
Water, sanitary,
Porta potty facilities when you have events. Through the chair, I think one of my concerns is I'm not concerned about the year-round operation. I think that was just assumed at the time. The use of high impact, what's on the list is high impact motorized activities after dark seems like a safety issue to me, and it's probably not something you'd want to do. If changing your hours to be 24 and limiting those to 8 a.m. to sunset seems appropriate for motocross activities. I don't think it's something you're going to run at night or have those, but I just, to make it clear, that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Any opinions there?
they take a tough mutter was they running, there was a motor. That's right. People run around. Yes. And they painted, they run through. I'm with Don. I don't think that we would want to do anything that's viable for injury or somehow to limit the impact of unforeseen circumstances of you cut lines to do whatever you want to do.
And when we approve lighting for facilities, we should request lighting plans and everything else to make sure that things are fully covered.
Go, Gene.
If in the future you did decide to light it up, would they come back to us just for that very reason? Lighting and everything?
Well,
I think that there's a restriction.
well, if they were going to add lighting to the property, would that require a new site
That-
plan
No.
modification?
Yeah, that would
What
be
if-
a site plan
That
modification
would
if
be
you're
a
gonna
site plan
add
modification.
lighting. I mean,
What about,
if you if you're running temporary lighting from
Yeah.
generators, I don't know if that like rises to the level of a site plan modification. Unless it was like constant, like daily,
Yeah.
but if they were to install permanent lighting, that would be considered a site plan modification.
I have no issue. You know, photographs can not be permitted after dark. That's not what's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah.
So it's, it's impossible.
Sure.
It's not happening. It hasn't happened. It's not going to. So we'd like to
Just for
regulate
clarification.
that and put that in there for clarification. I'm fine with that.
through the chair.
Go right ahead.
Just further thought. I'm just looking at the way it's written. I was thinking about like golf carts or ATVs driving around the facility at night with their headlights on.
Mhm.
Is that a high impact use? I don't think that was the intent, like Randy likes to say. I think it's probably like racing is the high impact use, not just
If they're driving,
driving
it's-
golf cart.
Be a new sport.
So maybe we refine the high impact use. It's more like racing, not just driving
Racing
a
practices
four-wheel
and-
drive
and the ones that-
vehicle.
Yeah, no, I think
you know?
that falls under, moving, you wouldn't restrict people driving their cars
Yeah.
in and out of the facility.
Right.
But if it's an event that requires golf carts to be competitive, that's a different story.
So maybe
Yeah, it's like
we add
competitive
that
events,
as a high
Lawnmower races. good.
lawnmower races, right?
Yeah.
But
It
maybe
is a
that
sport.
needs to be called out. 'Cause
It might need to be spelled out separately, that driving in and out of the property is not considered.
And
Yeah,
racing
high
is
impact.
more of a high impact.
Yeah.
Motorized vehicle racing.
Well, that's if you were to consider it that, yeah, somehow just kind of clarify that, for somebody to use the ATV to go around, pick up garbage, for
Yeah,
instance, that's not the intent. It's if they're using it for some type of competitive sport,
Right.
racing, whatever, off-roading, whatever you want to call it, but I think, it's likely that, in a facility like this, they might have an AT to running around, do maintenance, picking up garbage, whatever, so.
Go right ahead, Kurt.
So maybe exempt something like service. That is, a simpler way, Russ, does that sound like a way that?
Yeah, that-
Service vehicle, so they have, EMTs on a golf cart. or
Right.
an ATV,
That might be
or-
a bit more appropriate word, say service vehicle.
and it leaves us with the broad, high impact activities that we work hard on this list so that we could have guidance of for things that may not have yet been contemplated, but fit within that.
Go ahead, John.
So everybody knows about your events, I guess, when you have events, but just explain what a typical week is. Normal week, what people use it, what
so-
noise is produced, or through the 4 years that you've been doing it.
So last year was really our first year of steady operation. That's our part. We were mostly busy on weekends. Most people out of work and most people recreate. Goes to the plethora of activities. We had the high school cycling association come through. Almost 1,000 kids on mountain bikes. We had small adventure race called the Muddy Princess. Some of you guys have ever heard of that. Where, obstacle course race, people run through the mud and over obstacles and get dirty and get a finish a medal with you. COVID, no beers, is a finisher award.
Could you speak up?
Typically typical of a lot of those events. had motocross, side-by-sides, ATVs, Jeeps, whole bunch of motorized activities, weekends, and every day of the week, whether it was a private rental or a scheduled practice, which we were open for on Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays, a few Thursdays, and a few Fridays. So we were open quite a bit last year, and we already had a lot of fun doing it. Have a lot of, like you say, a lot of different things go on. We were limited last year for a lot of the bigger events. Spartan Tough Mudder, because of COVID, their plans were denied by the state early in the year when they pulled their permits. So we didn't host them. Maybe in the future we will, maybe we won't. Being a sports entertainment recreation facility, we don't know what's coming next year. There might be something brand new, sports entertainment recreation related. And that's why we changed from just a motocross facility being limited to motocross, which is not the only thing we do, to sports entertainment. And that's what we've done. We also did movie night, movie night, some haunted themed private events, all night dance parties, silent dance parties.
Are those agricultural though?
Oh, please, it's not open to the public yet.
Sorry, I didn't know.
A lot of things. Because most people don't even know that.
All right, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm still gonna go back to, I don't see a copy of the agreement. Settlement agreement.
The settlement agreement basically said, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Set us in motion for a procedure that the town and the applicant agreed to. That the applicant would submit the new site plan, would submit a list of high, low, and medium impact activities, and that the campground would be removed from the site plan and that the site was defined. And within that settlement agreement and subsequent planning board approval was the areas where the high, low, and medium impact activities could occur. So there was a mechanism to use the legal system as it's designed to come to a meaningful agreement. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Dated April 27, 2018.
Yes, that's what I have in mind.
And we don't have a copy.
No, I-
Settlement agreement specifies that 508 shall complete all of its unfinished improvements under the previous. Approved plan. Has that all been done?
So do you have I have a copy of the settlement agreement right here if you'd like to. I thought there was a copy in the application, but
That was all completed so that we could get our occupancy.
We can say there's nothing outstanding on that.
You good?
Yes, I am.
All right. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing, open to the public. If you speak, please say your name and address, and as stated by planning board member Bill Fontaine, conservation issues, noise issues are not a purview of this board.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to start with this. I have two people requesting to chat here through Zoom. I don't know.
Right.
Oh,
Okay, they cannot hear comments being made. All right, just when you do
Oh.
speak, please speak clearly and loudly so that everyone, so that the speaker can pick it up. All right. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Go right ahead.
Sitting or,
Yeah, go right ahead. Just
Okay.
name and address, please.
John Sanborn, 12 Jennings Drive.
Yep.
In Charlton. Coming to you today as a resident of Charlton. Disclosure says that I am currently chairman of the Board of Health here in Charlton. But I do have some issues. One of them is, and I hate to do this, but there's an email that just came out to me and copied to Randy Benson at 4:27 today. Rose Conway, Charlton Conservation Commission. I had asked her a question last week and she just got back to me.
That's one of the emails I did receive
Yeah.
this afternoon. It's in
This is-
your
Yep, we got it.
file. Yeah.
So she says, as of today, there is an outstanding enforcement order for parcel 29-A-8. Says, please refer to the enforcement order and report attached. Further, and I'm quoting her here, word for word, I have contacted Mr. Jennings many times in the past 2 years following up on the site inspection, but to date, he has not submitted an application to address the violations. So this is one of the 6 parcels that's listed on the public hearing notice. Actually, it's listed twice, 29A8, 29A8. So I would find it difficult to approve anything when you have an outstanding enforcement order by another town agency.
It's just, all right. I think it was spoken by Mr. Fontaine that conservation, we have no control over that as far as that goes.
All right, so
All right.
just for the record, I just want to make it clear then that you will not consider that when you potentially approve this operation that Mr. Jennings has approved. So he can go ahead, even though this has been since May of 2020, over a year and a half that he's had to fix a conservation issue, a wetlands violation
Yep,
on his property.
yep.
Okay,
So, all right, that conservation meets, I think, on Wednesday nights as well, I believe, Mrs. Sanborn.
okay.
So just, you can, we have no control over that.
But you would have control to deny the permit until he fixes the issues.
We can still operate, because we can still operate in April through October. That's on the conservation, that's not on the planning board.
Okay, so you're gonna allow them to expand, okay. All right, I've got a few other things, so. Is there an as-built plan that you should have an as-built plan with the planning board, right? A current, because I know there's been a lot of clearing out there, jeep trails have been put in. Is there anything out there? I know there was something on this planning board hearing, I believe I was copying on it, and it had a tiny little plan called Sunset City, which is
It's,
a name that they abandoned 5 years ago for 508. But I'm just curious if that encompasses what their current operations show with the Jeep trails and clearing the parking lots and all the other improvements that they've done.
when we received a copy of the original approved plan, we weren't notified that there's been any changes to the property since that plan was approved.
So as far as you know, they're still only considered 22 acres, which is, I believe, what the original plan shows. Again, I'm just kind of distressed that they could have gone from 22 acres to over 50 acres, or 75 acres of disturbance, and you wouldn't even show it on any plan, Mr. Jennings? Do you
Wait,
have
wait,
an
hold,
as-built
just to keep everything in line here with this public hearing, it's about hours of operation.
plan? Okay,
All
All
right,
right.
it's not about, did he cut too many trees? Does
okay,
he
that's
do
fine.
that? Just please.
How is it not about everything?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Please. That's just,
Where would
just so
I-
we stay on the right track. We don't go 80 different directions, if you get my drift.
Last one.
Okay,
Can
good.
can you at least direct me to whoever would have an as-built plan in the town? I would hope that somebody would for a large-scale international business like this.
The only plan the town received was the plan from the beginning. If there's been any revisions out there, Mr. Jennings has not made us aware of that, so we don't know that, you know, the as-built that we have is the one that we assume is correct. If there's been changes out there, we're not aware of those changes.
Well, this is a blank check.
Oh, please, please.
So, aside from the fact that they have previous violations for a liquor license, and they're not only advertising overnight parking, they've also done camping without permits. Evidently, this board has no problems with that either, so.
Camping's not under our purview.
That would be a Board of Health.
Yeah, it's a Board of Health issue.
So if he's advertising camping, and he is, for 3 nights overnight in April of this year, next month, who's to stop him from that?
I had a discussion with the Board of Health about that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll talk to Mr. Colbert.
okay, thank you.
I'm all set for now.
Perfect, thank you very much. Yep, any other questions? Go right ahead. Yep.
I've got a few of them.
Yeah.
So I guess, oh, sorry, Amy Stanley, and I'm at Hidden Circle.
Yep.
And hopefully my voice travels. So I guess our neighbor's concern is the 365 days a year. As you guys all know, or many of you know, there's no sound abatement there. They're relying on the leaves on the trees. I know I had emailed Mr. Mestis in October, and at that time, of course, many of the leaves were down, and that's probably the only time that I had emailed because the noise was intrusive at that time. Through the summer, of course, it was annoying to hear the buzzing noise, but it wasn't, you know, enough that it would have to fall, you know, mess with them. So our concern is there going to be additional sound abatement put in, if we're going to allow it to go?
I think my question is, when you had the sound, did you call the Board of Health or the DEP?
I emailed this. No, I didn't.
Okay,
Yeah, I emailed.
because that's the way that it's right here in our January 25th, 2018 planning board.
I haven't.
Yeah, the procedure for addressing noise complaints is to contact James Philbrook, and the Mass DEP has adopted a policy that restricts the noise increase with the and it's under jurisdiction of the Board of Health.
And I did email. I mean, in the past, I have.
Okay, because he's the main contact for that.
I get that. But
Okay.
this is- You guys are looking to approve to change this, you know, from the April to October to
Mhm. Year-round.
all year round.
Mhm.
With no. You know, so it's just going to be very intrusive as our concern. The other thing is, did research for all of Massachusetts for operations like this, and they all end at dusk. And don't understand the 24 hours unless he's planning on having camping like we did in October.
Yeah.
October 2021, it was a Jeep event,
Mhm.
and it was listed as overnight parking. But the advertisement says tents, campers, trailers, and RVs welcome. Is this just okay, speculation? Is this is what they're trying to do? Is have camping without going for, especially when they've already done it. You know, this has happened in the past. And they have just in April, we've got 3 events that they overnight park. So our concern is, you know, all that extra stuff going on, and why would we allow, you know, why would the town allow something beyond what others? MX23, they close at dusk. Edward Sound has DJ MX Park.
Mhm.
They close at dusk at 11 to 5. The WIC is in Southwood,
Yep.
Mass. They all close at dusk. You know, so it's
Those-
fair for the neighbors to be concerned.
Are those all motocross facilities?
Um,
that you listed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of these places, no camping is allowed. All prohibited.
Okay.
One second. ordered ones in the area. It's filled up.
Okay.
The noise, there's no sound abatement. And they've already done camping overnight. What's, it's really. The neighbors are key.
Okay. All right, thank you, Amy.
I
Is there-
emailed you guys all this information. but
Yes,
I
we got it.
You got
We
it.
got it later.
And I gave you screenshots and.
Yep.
From all these places. Just to make it easy.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public? Go right
Yes,
ahead.
I'd like to jump in here. Hello?
What-
Give it.
Just go right ahead,
Sorry.
Ann.
Which way are we going, folks?
You're up, Ann. Go right ahead.
Thank you so very, very much. My name is Ann Jablonski. I live at 16 Rustic Drive in Worcester, Massachusetts. I am an abutter. The property is held in trust for me. And the parcels I own are 29A10 and 29A11. That's probably not the hardest thing for me, but a few years ago, I realized that Mr. Jennings prefers to ask forgiveness than permission after having done things, because my property was being used by his organization because he did not know where the boundary between Sturbridge and Charlton was. There was considerable damage, including the removal of brush and trees, and a stone wall, little bobcat tracks on my property. So I'm very concerned that this increase in usage will only exacerbate the situation. I think the boundaries are clear now. I would like to suggest that the planning board, and I don't know if this is the purview because there's so much that isn't, require a clear boundary, a fence or something. Because if you have
I
kids,
second that.
pardon?
I second that.
Oh, okay. That kids, I have water, a big pond, only a few hundred feet from where people were racing. Again, on my property, but then if you even move it another 10 feet to his property, we still have nearby water. I am liable if those participants in the particular events are in any way injured because he does not have control over his boundaries. And I also, Mr. Fontaine, I realize that it's not the purview of the job of the planning board to give a list of activities, but Mr. Jennings has already told us tonight a number of activities that are already in place or might happen. And I think the planning board should hold him to giving a spec sheet of what kinds of activities and when, even if they're tentative, because the 508 advertises well in advance of what's going to take place at the Charlton site. So I'm really concerned that this information is available. It may not be complete. It may not be the purview of the planning board, but you should know what kinds of events are being represented. And I really am fearful for the idea of camping because I can see these kids without a clear boundary marker, trailing off to meet the black bear who lives on the property, my property. I don't know what he says about the decibels. But in any case, I just am concerned about safety. And I don't understand how neighbors can stand all of the noise all of the time, because I've heard it when I've been out there. And the other thing is, there is an old defunct road. It's an offshoot of Lad Road. It's called, I think it's Bond Sawmill Road or something like that, which was off the books for years and years and years. Taken off the books, I think, in the 1920s, actually, which Mr. Jennings' operation opened up and had all of his equipment going back and forth. And I think he's proposing that that would be the Sturbridge entrance. And that's not a public access. It's my driveway to get to my land and the driveway to get up to a house that's on the property, Mr. Salu's property. So I'm concerned about this overreaching, which is represented by this request and so many other issues. And I thank you for hearing my little spiel.
All right, thank you, Ann. Ron, you got something to say? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Honorable Board. My name is Ron Charetta with 205 Brookfield Road. It's parcel 15B8. I'm a direct abutter to Title 8. And as many of you remember, I was one of the ringleaders of the opposition a number of years ago. Let me start off by saying the first comments that I heard from Mr. James tonight made a whole lot of sense. He was asking the board for clarity as to what is allowed. I'm not aware of any of the neighborhood residents that were involved in negotiating the settlement agreement. So from the residential point of view, we have no idea what's in that settlement agreement, nor how does it really affect our daily lives. But here's my reality for me, and I'm only speaking for myself. This is not proven to be the terrible, horrible thing that we were told it was going to be a number of years ago. The noise from the racetrack is horrible. I can walk to the far end of my property, I can hear motorcycles going around, but I will tell you, folks, it's no worse than the neighbor mowing their grass constantly back and forth for an hour and a half. It comes and it goes. Last summer, I was treated to country music. I was out weeding in the garden and there was country music going. It wasn't bad. It didn't bother me that much. Now, there have been issues. I'm not going to try to candy coat anything. There have been concerns. But I think for those that want 508 to go away and disappear, that's not going to happen. That's the reality of what we're living with. So we're at a point right now, we have to figure out how do we make this work for both sides. The residents who have issues and concerns, and the businesses trying to grow and do what they do, cause making money. And there's never been an opportunity or vehicle. My good neighbor, Mr. Sanborn, just pointed out. Where do you go when you have an issue or a concern? There's such a myriad of, do we call Kirk, do we call the police, do we call the Board of Health, what do we call it? There's never been a clear-cut path for communication and dialogue. And I think we do have one. It's called the Board of Selectmen. And I think the Board of Selectmen ought to make it very clear that if there is a concern, they have a staff in the office, you can call their office, you can register the concern, and if there are enough concerns, I believe Mr. Jennings makes himself available to go to Board of Selectmen meetings and address them. But we've really kind of come to a point in history where this unfinished symphony has got to get finished. We've got to figure out how do we make it work? Is there a way? I mean, greater things have found compromise. Greater issues and problems have been resolved. But we continue this animosity, this fighting, and you're right and I'm wrong. Now, where do we go with it? They're not going away. I'm clear about that. They're not going away. There's a big investment in that business. They're not going to disappear. I can't afford to buy them. I don't know if any of my neighbors can, But I was standing out there the other day. I said, what if Mr. Jennings decided to sell this property or turn it into housing? Or even worse, what if he had negotiated with Amazon and they put the distribution center back there? Just think about what that would have done. The biggest problem I face on Brookfield Road right now are the trailer trucks and the car carriers that go up that road 60, 70, 80 miles an hour around the curve. So I'm hoping that we can come up with a vehicle or a method that the issues or concerns of the business can be addressed in a timely way. We don't have Mr. Stanley calling on the phone. That does nothing. Really, you can't call it on a Sunday afternoon and say, hey, the noise is too loud, or I'm concerned about the traffic. What is a good format that we can use that we can get those concerns sent to and addressed by the owners of 508, so they can be compromised, there can be resolution. Everybody's not gonna be happy about everything. Never, it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. But those big issues, those big ticket items that people are concerned about, what is the format for dialogue and compromise?
Thank you. All right, any other comments from the public? Orin, do you have a question? No?
This is her hand still. Just lower hand.
Mr. Cisco, do you have a question?
Yes, I
Okay.
don't understand why. I don't understand why he needs a blank check of 24/7, 365 when he already makes enough noise.
Is it the motocross noise that people find the most intrusive, or is there?
Yes, all hours of the day and night already, you can hear brap, brap, brap when you go out the front door of my parents' house.
So limiting that from morning to dusk is an appropriate thing to do.
Yes, 24 hours a day is not acceptable when he is not a campground and does not have the proper facilities to be a campground.
Orin, do you have any other questions or comments?
This is an Orin.
Oh, sorry.
It was a good try though, but it's just.
I apologize. You sound just like Orin. I'm sorry. It's tough with the blank screen. Don't see the face. I apologize. Do you have any other questions or comments?
I just hope that when you guys vote, you're taking into consideration, all the abutters and all of the nonsense that's gone on with this company. And I'm not even sure if it's 508 International, if it's 508 Base, if it's GARE, if it's Sunset City, because every time we get a document, it's different. I don't know what kind of business this is, but it's nonsense. And giving them a blank check of 24/7, 365 infringes on the rights of the abutters.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions? Go right ahead, Amy.
As a neighbor, we want them to succeed, but we
Yep.
also we don't want it to intrude on us. I don't think we're asking too much by limiting the motorized stuff till dusk.
Mhm.
I think that's a fair enough request from them. There's
Okay.
plenty of time from 8, they get to 8, but
Yep.
to dusk that they can be doing it. To just give them a blatant, you can do it 24 hours, every day of the year. Especially with, there's no sound abatement there.
Okay.
That's not fair. I mean, they did a couple activities outside of that. Actually, they did the entire month of November that they're not supposed to. We've got a print out of their, I emailed it to you.
Yes.
The
Okay.
entire month, they have stuff going on. And then this April, I think I counted 23 out of 31 days, there's events.
All right.
So we're talking about having this every single month, like this, that's what they're looking to.
All right.
So it's just that, sorry.
I'm the chair.
Go right ahead, Russell. Yeah.
Again, for clarity, Amy, you have a copy of our schedule for April. What are the hours?
This is the current hours before but you're looking to change them to 24 hours.
Well,
So the current ones are fabulous. I'll be honest
So
with you.
these are the motocross hours, the Danny will present to you for April.
And they end at 6 o'clock. So, which I said that I have no problem with that. That's not an issue as a neighbor. It's
So-
the 24 hours of not knowing what you're gonna do.
So again, last year, knowing our schedule, know that on Saturdays and Sundays, we ended at 4 or 5.
Why are
That
you
was our
asking
schedule.
them?
And then this is the motocross schedule. And then on the Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays that we're open, we're typically 1 to 7. Again, following suit with any of the motocross track. We don't open up at 8, we don't open up at 9. We open at 10 or later, just by the time everyone gets there. Closing down, we close down, we like to close down well before dusk. We think that when it starts to get dark, things happen. You don't want that to happen. So this is why we say we have no problem whatsoever in limiting motocross to the hours of it does. That's not something we have an issue with. The hours for sports and entertainment recreation outside of it, now that's a different story. Because we can't predict when those things are going to happen because we don't even know what they might be. Whether it's that night, this golf competition or an overnight Spartan race, things like that. Again, those are things that we do at night and people don't even know they happen. Motocross, so if you wanted to say motocross, 8 a.m. to dusk only, everything else, different story. We have no problem.
We did have an event, a Jeep event, where it was 30-minute tour at night through the woods.
So now you're talking about registered vehicles that have lights.
I'm just saying, you
Can't
said
hear
there's no
them.
nighttime stuff.
Sure, that's part of the sports entertainment recreation. Is it motorized? Yes. Is it offensive to the neighbors? Absolutely not. Unless you knew it was on the schedule, you didn't even know what happened.
Randy, you gonna say something?
Well, it's just trying to get a clarification because he's agreeing to the limitation of just motocross, but not motorized activities. I'm just trying to get a clarification. So should the board consider approving that,
Gotcha.
just so we're all on the same page? Yeah, okay.
All right, any other questions from the public? Go right ahead, Amy. That's all right. Yep.
Now, these other things you're requesting, you can always get hemp permit. I can imagine you doing all these things, like I said, all year round. And like you said, it's not that many things, so why do you need to extend this to 365 when you go right to this left and say, hey, I'm not gonna do this about it?
I love the enthusiasm. I like the idea. I like where you're going. You talk with Kurt, you would totally understand, as our organization found, that in Charlton, there are no temporary event permits for anything sports, entertainment, recreation related. And I turn it over to Kurt to verify that, because we proposed operating and doing business in exactly that fashion. When we have a Spartan race come before us, we'll come and get a permit. There's no structure or mechanism in Charlton for that to take place. Therefore, we had no choice, and that's part of why we got shut down initially for zoning violations. So we said, okay, now we got into the lawsuit, settlement agreement. This is how we resolved it by saying 508 is more than just a dirt bike facility. We have the intentions of doing more than just motocross. We want to be limited to just motocross, and we don't want to be coming before the board of selectmen, the planning board, the building inspector, zoning enforcement officer every week and go, hey, we got a call last night from this guy who wants to do something next weekend. How do we make this happen? There's no structure or permit to do that stuff. We don't have the things in place. This was the solution. We listed out, as Kurt said earlier, high, low, medium impact uses that take place on the property. And that we would hope would head us in the right direction is it a end all, solve all? No. Are we here as a business, say, you guys have questions and concerns as neighbors? Our long neighbor, 35, 40 years from? You guys want to talk about something, resolve something? We're here, and we want you to be as happy as you possibly can be in your yard, doing what you love to do while we do our business as well. And we want to fit into the community and not be offensive and create problems so that you guys get phone calls, you guys get phone calls, or you get phone calls. And this is what the process is supposed to be about. And will we make everyone happy? Never. Will you get phone calls? Absolutely.
Go ahead, Amy.
So you're, so the way we're looking at as neighbors is you're looking to have no oversight at all by granting 365, 24 hours. Is that what you're looking for?
That's not true. I believe the oversight already exists in our community so that when you have a problem with a business, not just our business, but any business stepping out of line, you have a place to call and have that concern, legitimate concern, legitimately evaluated and then dealt with according to the law, rules and regulations, which we all must follow. We ask as a business that we be held to the same exact standard as any other business. There's other businesses in the town. Keeping Home Nature Sanctuary, Joslin Diabetic Camp, New Old Commons. They're sports, entertainment, recreation businesses that if I were to ask Randy right now what their hours of operation are, he would say, I don't think they have it. They certainly don't have any before the planning. They do overnight things. They host overnight activities, no different than us. And they stay within the boxes they're supposed to, just like we do. You don't do anything out of line. The last couple of years, any of our night events, like I said, not many people know about it. There were no problems.
Mr. Chairman, just to
Go right ahead.
reinforce my suggestion, maybe as a board, you could send a friendly suggestion to the Board of Selectmen saying, when there are issues and concerns regarding 508 or anything, 508, this is the format. Call the Selectmen's office, register your concern, and then you will be directed to the appropriate, whether it's Mr. Meskis, whether it's the Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation, Board of Health, whatever. I mean, I can't say I don't know because serving on the Board of Selectmen, because I do know. But many people don't know who to call and talk to. And so I think that's creating animosity. So having a clear path of reporting a problem and getting the appropriate authority that can take care of that problem involved. They will certainly contact Mr. Jennings. And if there's an issue, let's get it resolved. But I think it's incumbent upon the Board of Selectmen to let people know that's where you go. That's their one-stop shop for any issue, any concern, any complaint about anybody, any business. That's where they should go. And I really would suggest to you that you make that little suggestion to your fellow board that they post that on and say, look, if there's a concern about 508 and noise or whatever, let's deal with it in the selectman's office. We'll get the people on it. We'll get Mr. Jennings or his representatives to come in and come up with hopefully a resolution that makes people feel better. Not saying everybody's going to be happy to solve it 100%, but at least have it. This is why I think we made the mistake 5 years ago, not having a clear path to solution. Instead, we butted heads. We continue to butt heads. I mean, you get to a point where you say, really, is that really good? I really strongly would hope that mechanism gets put into place. And what's like saying, you want to come up on a Tuesday night and state what your issues are? Sure, we'll invite Mr. Jennings or any of his cohorts to come in and we'll talk about it and see how we can fix it. Maybe you can't, but at least you have a forum to take it to. Not to you, not to the building inspector, zoning enforcement officer, but where does it go? And I think that's kind of what Mr. Sandberg was saying before. He's asking you these questions that are really not germane to what you're looking at, but they're legitimate questions that neighborhood residents have. And so I think that if you can get that system in place and make it be known, then maybe some of this animosity will kind of go away and we can work through it.
Thank you.
We have a
Very good
non-voting minority here. You guys can.
If I could.
Go right ahead, Steve.
At the Steve Corona, I've been on the board of selectmen for almost 2 years now. I have not heard one complaint about 508. I'm learning more tonight about what they do over there than I ever do. I haven't heard any complaints from our chief of police or police department. I haven't, if there are issues out there, there are certain remedies to do it. We get complaints all the time from anything, about barking dogs, anything silly, but it's amazing. I've never heard anything about 508. Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
But there certainly is a mechanism in place. If you called myself or Bill or any of the other selectmen or emailed us, we would call Andrew and then Andrew.
Yeah, trickle it down.
You could just get on Andrew's cell phone number.
No, we have, he'd be our first call, but then we would also call the person back. I mean, there is a way. We've got to work as a community here to do it, but my point is, I haven't heard any complaints. I learned more tonight on what they're doing up there than I don't really step it.
And I think most of the happenings that upset the neighbors are on weekends, at night, when nobody's at town hall. So they really can't, they feel frustrated because they can't talk to anybody when it's happening. And I understand that.
Well, even if they just documented a police call, that
We
have-
documented other things. I know if you talk with Board of Health, I'm sure they have all kinds of phone calls that they, or messages that they were getting. I know planning board got some. But it's, when something is happening and it's annoying to you right there and then, you want to let somebody know, and it's usually when nobody's in town hall. I don't know, what to do for that instance. We're not a 24/7 town. I mean, we are, but building isn't.
Does DEP have a hotline? They're the ones that regulate it.
They are,
They're the governing authority.
I don't know though if that's through Board of Health.
So what can we do before we get there? I mean, nobody wants to get to
Yeah,
that
no, I
spot.
don't- yeah.
Let's put some
Mr.
simple.
Chairman?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So Bill Borowski,
Yep.
current chair of the Board of Selectmen
Yep.
for another 5 weeks. That being said, to former Selectman Charrette's point, I'm sure we could come up with something. Now, we ended on the line. I'm sure between you and I and the rest of the boards, we can have some type of conversation. My only concern, and I'm speaking for the candidate, is I don't want everything pushed on the Board of Selectmen, saying it's up to you guys to solve it. Because quite honestly, 99% of the issues being discussed tonight, and again, we're not trying to pass the buck either, but literally, we're not going to step on some other board's toes.
No.
Whether it's Concom, BOH, PB, ZEO, Board of Appeals, we're not going to say, go fix this. What we could do is, again, I don't want to speak for Andrew, but I'm sure we can come up with something, is to find a way to track and funnel appropriate.
Yeah, just put them in the
But
right
from a single
direction.
point of contact, that's why I like to tell people at work. When I'm leading a team, if there's a problem, don't call my team, call me. I will get it to the right person. Now, I don't want to overburden the town hall staff, but if this is enough of an issue, I'm sure we can work something out. But, like Gene said, if something's happening on Saturday or Sunday, that might be a little more problematic. And, but that might just be, all right, we get the message, and then we call Russ on Monday and say, hey, Russ, you know what, we had some issues this weekend. We, go talk to the Board of Health, try to find a way to resolve this, get back to the resident so that it doesn't happen again. But if it's just a single point of contact, again, not speaking for Andrew or the other members of the board, we can play good partner in all this and try to come up with something that might help streamline efficiency. And whoever's chair next year will be more than happy to take this on.
Well, I would just,
Add to that one. Listening, I sat in one of these before I was a selectman, probably 2016, one of these meetings. There was a lot of animosity. I'm not feeling that. People seem to be working things out and getting, look how far we've come, right? Just let them try it, let them see it. If there are complaints, we'll handle it. But it's night and day compared to 2016 to where we are now. I mean, it's come a long way. I think it can only get better, but you have to, they put a big investment in there and give them a shot.
Businesses in Charlton are 24/7, 365, just for the record.
DPW, police department, overlook.
Like,
Yep, McDonald's, McDonald's,
Amazon.
Amazon, the other facility will be,
LNG.
yeah, LNG.
that's it?
So,
But I just, speaking from a staff standpoint, I mean, when we do have people who complain, some typically, I hate to burden the selectman's office, but Mary and Kara do get calls and they usually will forward it to the rest of the staff and we figure out, okay, who's responsible to handle this? I mean, when people do call and they're unsure who to talk to, they're very good about, sending it out to people and we determine who's the right person to talk to with, Board of Health, Conservation. So it does work when people contact.
Yep.
Hopefully you can just get something. Look, if you get a problem, but really anything in town, do this. It's almost like a customer service hotline.
Yeah, correct.
You know what? Single point of contact, we'll hopefully find a way to like dish it out. But again, I can't promise anything, but I think it's a very reasonable request.
Yep.
That we could probably come up with something.
Yep, fair enough.
So,
Sounds like a plan. Thank
I'll get
you.
off my,
No, you're good. You're good. All right.
I didn't want to talk tonight.
Anything else from the public?
Never. Who had an hour and a half, because I had 20 minutes.
All right, hearing none, seeing none. All right, do the motion to close public comment.
Anybody else?
Um,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Amongst the board, for discussion.
So I think, definitely limiting. And I want the motorized vehicle activities. The Jeep thing surprised me that went on at night, and I'm not sure what's involved with that or how much of a safety, for me, it's more of a safety factor of limiting that kind of thing. I don't know what's involved with what you did for Jeep night. Is it just a four-wheel drive trip through the woods at night? So it's dark, it's guided tour through the
Registered vehicle.
is it registered vehicles driving through the woods or commercial activity? Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too, Don, like, how do you can't, what strikes me here, there's a lot of verbs, there's a lot of activities, and then on the left-hand side, it's just nouns, it's just a list of vehicles, but not really an activity.
Yeah.
It does make sense to make that a verb. What activity are we trying to limit here in a high impact use?
I think
And
it's,
maybe it's an unregistered vehicle, because those could be the ones without the mufflers that are going to make noise. One of the things about motocross though is like now they're coming out with EV motocross.
Yeah, and you've got
Battery
girl
powered
bikes
motocross.
that could, could be registered for the road.
A lot of recreation.
So,
I-
so you've got a guided Jeep tour through the woods. But then again, you've got an enduro bicycle, enduro motorcycle race or tour through the woods. Yeah.
through the chair, I think maybe the word you're looking for is racing versus
Yeah.
touring.
Right.
A Jeep tour, guided Jeep tour through the woods is not a big deal. If they were racing, obviously they're making more noise, they're louder, and with any type of motorized vehicle. So touring at night, say they're touring on snowmobiles, for instance, in the wintertime, that's a lot different than competitive racing.
And then again, snowmobiles at night tend to make a lot of noise.
Well, they always
Those
do.
you're not cutting through the woods. So, I would say motorized vehicles between dusk and
Motorized vehicles or
between 8 and dusk and dawn.
motorized racing or motorized?
I would say motorized vehicles other than service vehicles or personal transportation
Or, well,
in and out of the facility or around the facility.
well, do we limit registered vehicles? Like they said, like the Jeep events with the registered vehicles, that's a fine line on
Snowmobiles are registered.
Well, I mean, like
Durham motorcycles.
licensed to be on the road in the state of Mass. Snowmobiles aren't licensed to be on the road. Yeah, it's a fine line.
Under 10
yes.
miles an hour. I mean, it's, how do you
How do you
separate
limit it?
that to make it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like where I had on.
Yes.
To me, it's easy, the high impact, it's done to dust.
Limit anything.
So I mean, it's tough. I don't want to limit things that are not going to be, annoying to people, but I don't know how to define, how would you define it?
I would define it as,
You understand where we're going, right? I'm worried
I
about
do,
safety
and
and.
I'm not, I'm really not opposed to what you're trying to do. I wouldn't want to restrict myself so that someone goes, oh, they're doing this. Not what we're talking about. I think that you'd probably limit activity. Any non-registered personal ATV, which would include motorcycles, four-wheelers, side-by-sides, excluding service. That would not include not decimal.
I just don't want to be back here in another year because you decided to have a Jeep race through the woods.
Well-
Yeah, I know it's not your intention, and I get that. It's just, okay.
Maybe the best way to handle this, should the board decide to move forward, is that they could write a draft decision that the board can look at with the language that, and Mr. Jennings also, so that everybody could find language that we're all agreeable to, so that we don't end up back here in a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that may fall through the cracks with that agreement is what about mud bog? But I'm just saying, it could happen. Now you're listing out several different.
You would say, what could possibly be?
It could be a personal vehicle. I mean, I could bring my Jeep off the road and.
So if you had,
Not that I would, but.
let's put it this way. If you have, there's two divisions. The first division is your personal vehicle. It passes all the rules and regulations in the state of Massachusetts when you drive down. If it does not, now that's a police issue. So, very, right? Everything else is maybe off-road vehicles. Your personal vehicle, if you have the
Street legal at the
exhaust
time.
blown off it,
Sure.
you have the exhaust blown off it, and you're driving up and down the road, and you're offensive with anything, and that's a police issue, and you call the police service. Well, it's us. That's.
I mean, we could call street legal vehicles. That way they, can go in there and modify the exhaust.
Are exempt from that clause, and
Street legal and service vehicles.
perfect.
Street legal and service.
Comfortable with that.
Very simple. Oh, you saw that.
Street
Street legal.
Street legal. It has to be registered. It has to be
Pass
You know,
mass
it can't be
inspection.
modified on site to do a particular activity.
Yeah,
It has
like
to be street
Unhook
legal
the
at the
exhaust, so
time
it
of
has
the
to be
activity.
street legal on
So you're
site.
not gonna Exhaust off, put on 80-inch tires and
Yeah,
blast through the mud. It has to be street legal at the time of the.
yeah, I've been there, done that. The first thing you do is unhook the exhaust, so that's why if you keep it street legal, then the exhaust has to stay on. That's where the noise is, you know, so.
How do you want to break that? Street legal.
And service,
only
street
after
legal and
dark.
service
Yes.
legal zones.
After, all others are limited to 8 to 8, with the exception of street legal and service vehicles.
Motion.
Yeah, make sure I get this right. So limit the hours, oh, there we go. Limit the hours from 8 to dusk for street legal, anything other than street legal or service vehicles, sunset. All right, sunset, sure, because that's an exact fact, yeah. Okay. So from 8 AM to sunset, with the exception of street legal or service vehicles, and allow for use of the facility 12 months out of the year. And no other hourly restrictions.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
We have a little discussion here.
Go right ahead.
Have a question?
Go right ahead.
This
Yep.
is the time for discussion.
Yeah, go right ahead, Gene.
I'm going back to the campground issue.
Okay,
You said it was permitted everywhere? or
it's a Y.
It's a
Allowed by
Y in
right,
the
but the
agricultural
permitting
zone.
is through the Board of Health.
Yeah,
On
he would,
MIPA, right?
right, he'd have to get
Any
it.
zone as long as you pass the regulations.
It's a Y.
Sorry, it's a Y in A. So it's
Yeah.
allowed in A,
Well, in A,
and then it's a special permit.
It's a-
So it's a permitted, and the other ones,
yeah,
the site plan approval.
Yep.
Except for,
Okay, it's not allowed anywhere.
but in A, it is a Y. It's allowed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they still have to get the Board of Health approval and DEP approval
Okay.
for the campground. That's a state requirement, so.
So there's things that-
Is there a permit that needs to go through that? Is there any other regulations that, there is several regulations, even for temporary camping? All through the Board of Health.
Even primitive camping, is that? Any
You
camping?
still need porta potties, you need facilities, you need.
Okay.
That's what I don't like is the overnight parking.
Yeah, but again, that's.
But, well, bring up a good question, too. Overnight parking in an RV.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
If it's self-contained,
Just like
It's a-
Walmart. Walmart.
yeah. I know.
Walmart. Walmart.
So, yeah, I mean, that still goes down to a zoning issue.
That
not a
goes
enforcement
down
issue.
to-
That's not, you know,
Yes, you're
we're not,
parking overnight. Yes, you have a generator. Yes, you're gonna run it. Generators at night. Don't like that. Look for that, Ron?
You can get, rent large diesel generators
Yes,
that you don't hear standing next.
okay, that's a generator that you're standing next to. I'm thinking about the ones that on the smaller campers, they keep them outside the camper. And on the big motor homes, they're sort of in a compartment. And they're louder inside the vehicle than they are outside of the vehicle. But the other ones that you have your generator in the back of your pickup and your running power to your trailer, those are the ones that are gonna be noisier.
we're so far removed that, and like I said, none of the neighbors have been.
And again, well, that's the Board of Health.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, we have a person, we have a motion in a
motion
second.
and second. All right, all those in favor?
Any other discussion?
Okay,
Aye.
thanks.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next up. We got, public hearing continued, OMA Group LLC site plan application, 157 Worcester Road, self-storage facility. Jay's here, see what we did, so we made out.
Ross, comment?
Yes.
Somebody said.
With the Omar Group application, we were,
All right, yeah, you're good.
with the Omar Group application, we were previously, they had approved, closed public hearing, but we, everybody was in favor, but we wanted to make sure that they had approval through the Conservation Commission because of the location of the new building. So I don't know if Jay has any information, because I believe he went to the Conservation Commission tonight, so. Okay, well, we won't get that for a little bit, but I mean, he's stating before the board that they got the approval tonight. I know they did have the public hearing, but it's the same time as ours, so. I don't know if the board wants to take any action on it tonight. I mean, that's the only thing that was outstanding, is whether the Conservation Commission was going to approve the location of the building in proximity to the wetlands.
Hi, John. Yeah.
Channelize that. He doesn't have a structural engineer.
So we did something without.
That's actually, well, we don't have a zoning. But that's actually a condition from the commission as well. If they want to see it. I don't see stamp drawing. I know personally.
So we get a building sitting on top of it.
Well, that. So if you think about, and the way it dawned on me, what we're doing here, right, is we're building a parking garage. Okay, so you have a parking garage, with foundations that go down, open space underneath them, okay? And another example of similar thing is we're doing detention. This is a detention basin, right? Okay, so D10 needs to hold water for a period of time and it can leave. So under the parking lot at 10 North Main Street, there's a whole bunch of 6-foot corrugated pipes. That is their detention basin. So you have a mixture of a parking garage structure like straddling a detention basin. And the frost-proof foundation is the footings that go down either side with some probably structural slab that goes across at the parking garage. And it just happens to have a garage door built on top of it.
Yeah, it's actually infiltration basin too, so it's not gonna have water.
Constantly in it.
Yeah. It's a 1-foot deal, infiltration, which is not on the. No. I can't take credit. This was the applicant's design.
This is a first for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, here he is. He had to step out for a moment, but here he is.
So the other check to our systems internally is that, okay, you guys approve something, and before construction starts, they need a notice to proceed, which is a meeting with Mike Andre, the engineer. I always ask applicants for a recorded order of conditions because that's part of their process. So I become a de facto clearinghouse for a lot of things, helping the applicant make sure that they have everything in place, because as I explained to them, I don't want you to start a project and have another board come out and say, oh, by the way.
All right, so what does the board want to do on this? Because I think Kurt explained the checks and balances as far as.
The Conservation Commission has okayed it. It's a matter of the applicant getting the proper design for a building permit, so it's really on Kurt at this point. It's
Well, I'll make a motion. That we approve
gonna be all about you.
the facility 157.
All right, all those in favor?
And the application will be with the usual conditions, pre-construction meeting, with the engineer and everything in a notice
All right.
screen.
I abstain. All right, thank you, Jed. Sticking around. All right. All right, next up, public hearing for Gary Inamorati for Gary Jackson Motors LLC, site plan application at 451 Stewart Road and 5 Glenmere. I'm not even gonna open it because I think there's some engineering issues.
Yeah, he had some stormwater issues and some other issues that both Mike Andrade and Angela, the conservation director, recommended that we don't open the public hearing. I spoke to Mr. Anarati and he was fine with that, and he's on lighting a fire engineer under his engineer to get it done quickly. I guess he was out there today working on it, so very quickly.
All right, next up, we got Gabe Trabo, zoning by law diagnostic review. How's it going, Gabe?
Hello, how is everyone?
Good, thanks for sticking around.
Of course.
All right.
So everybody has received Gabe's recommendations for the definitions and the new use table. It's one thing, it's like there's been discussions about the use table still lists this as agriculture, and so that we make sure we get this clarified. The intent was to change it to R60, I believe.
Ah, okay. I remember that now. I apologize for not including that.
What?
I can, yeah, so I can put together, I mean, there probably should be language that just edits the like, district definitions, correct? So I can put together the language for that. That should be straightforward. And I can change that to reflect in the table.
I just have one question. Did we do away with the MB, neighborhood business?
No. I
Was
think
there
that-
talk of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was talked earlier on, but there was too many differences between what we were gonna change it, that it felt right to keep it as it is, just so that we could better.
Yeah, we would have had to go through a lot of compromises between, especially the dimensional regs were just all over the place.
Okay, then the neighborhood business needs to be added to the other. It's not on the one sheet that I have here.
This one?
In the packet that we get.
Oh, the description of each zone.
It's not on- Intensity regulations.
Yeah, it's 3.1A, it's not listed there. Is that on here? Or is that on?
We have
Sorry,
a
excuse me,
little,
what's missing?
Neighborhood business.
What do you,
What do you got?
yeah, I don't even know what you're looking at.
So I don't have one, I didn't see one in the package. The table, or the beginning of the table is prefaced by district intents and purposes. And that describes,
And you didn't see one, right?
I didn't see one,
Neither did I.
and my comment was,
Where
you
is
folks, 3 years ago, was that you need to align with district intents and purposes with the table.
Right.
so that you don't say things like, oh, to have this happy-go-lucky place and then allow a gravel mining operation.
Yeah, we did have those intents in there originally. I don't see them in the packet, but I remember discussing them early on. That was probably one of the first things we did, was look at those intents and say, okay, this is.
And wasn't that, Ron?
Ron Barron?
Yeah,
Yeah, Ron Barron probably, I don't, that was probably when Ron was still on the project. I can look in here, I'll see if it's in the documents he passed on to me.
That was the first thing we did. We went through that full list and looked at them and changed some wording.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. Sorry about that.
yeah, this one got changed. This one
Yeah.
called out. Okay, this is where the other one was going to get much.
Yeah, we said not to do that. Very organized.
That's the neighborhood business you're referring to.
Yes.
Gabe, you were going to provide a table with the old and the new crossed out.
Yeah, so I sent that to the board on Monday. So it should, I don't know if that's in your packet that was printed.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I
Crossed
have-
out, but it's not clear what it was prior to changing.
Okay. Yeah, so I have a version that has the original use crossed out. This was more in preparation, like for the official, like the thing to be put on the warrant.
I did have a
That's what I'm saying
copy
is
of
this,
that, but
I think looking at this, it would be confusing for some people to know what it was prior to changing. And I think
Okay.
that would
Yeah.
be very helpful if they can see what it was prior to changing.
Yeah, so I have that version.
So
So
I have the version
I
that
can
you.
substitute that. I can substitute that easily. I just I was, if there's anything like that needs to be in the warrant language specifically, I could put that together, and then for the board's uses, have the final version of the document that has like where the edits have been done and the old versions aren't there. I don't know if that should be me doing that maybe after town meeting, or but I have the version where all those old uses are crossed out, or all the old regulations are crossed out and replaced. I can just substitute that. That should be easy.
The next meeting is when we're gonna have the actual public hearing, so I think we should have it available for that meeting, should anybody in the public want to look
course.
at it. To see the
Yeah, so-
before and after.
Yeah, so it was just unclear to me whether that would be in the warrant or in the, like in a supporting packet or something.
Supporting packet for the warrant. Yeah, whatever it is, I think it should be available to voters during the town meeting.
Of course, yeah.
Full understanding.
So I can put together, so yeah, my only thing is there any chance that in the town meeting process, the changes that have been generated are gonna be modified at all? Because I can also put together like the final version of the use table where like the old rows are like deleted and it's all like clean. So sort of like what's in the packet, but without the crossed out definitions, like the removed definitions. Would that make sense to put together, or should we just wait until after town meeting?
I think you probably, in light of the public won't know. The first question will be, well, what did it used to be? I think
Okay.
at this point in time for town meetings, should just have the crossed out version
Okay.
so the public can see what like used to
Yeah.
be and now, or.
Yeah, I wasn't
Um,
sure if legally you needed the final version as well. And so, okay, that makes sense.
Typically, the Attorney General's office likes to see that we provided them, the public, with
Okay.
as much information as possible.
Of course.
And then we would have a clean copy after that once.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, I can easily substitute for the next meeting. I can just paste in as you see, there is the version with the crossed out definition. So I can easily submit that.
We want to add that battery storage limit.
Well, that's something that I sent it out because we were actually having a meeting, a pre-development meeting. Kurt was actually here for that and everything. And actually, I had actually been approached by somebody asking about that. And, you don't think much about it at the time until you start thinking about, oh, what's a megawatt? It's a trailer truck, trailer. And 100 megawatts is 100 truck trailers. You know, maybe they have they're getting better. They can squish into 50. That's still a lot, you know, volume wise. So does the board want to put a limitation on, like we have a limitation on the solar fields? Do we want to put a limitation on energy storage? Because they're separate from solar fields. You can have just energy storage without a solar. That's becoming the new thing that everybody wants to do in Charlton.
So, I mean, is it something we want though? I mean, do we want a lot with 6 tractor trailers on it and that's all that's there?
Well, it's gonna be,
I understand the properties owners requiring it, but we've got enough trailers sitting
Well, they'd have to have the.
in lots all over town. So I understand to do with the community.
It-
You're limited
yeah, by the zones too.
to, it's not allowed, energy storage is not allowed in the agricultural zone. I think your proposal right now has an SP in community business and SP, BP and IG.
Right.
So we could always. use
Those are
that
the
SP
only
to
zones
limit,
at this point in time. So, and then, you know, with an SP that if it was in a visible location, we required to be buffered. Yeah. But
Well,
it,
you still have, so they're still structured, and they still have setback requirements, and you could still lean on screening requirements. And the other option is that if somebody did want to build, so if you limited it to 5 or 10 megawatts, right? Somebody could still possibly, and I'm not playing an expert, could possibly go to DPU or an ESFB and say, we're a public utility, or we want to be designated a public utility. So that might be a consideration on how we deal with it, right? Because if we restrict it too much.
but isn't that what the solar companies did and they all lost?
They were doing it more for taxes, I think. They're,
Well, I mean, the battery's the same thing. It's all about money.
oh,
So what?
well, yeah, it's all, well, and that's, I don't, so I know that there are some very large facilities out in the west. Okay, and California, in charge, has some very, very large facilities. And they are using old power plant sites. You know, the coal field that was at the power plant and stuff like that. So that's already a utility. They're using, my brother-in-law's involved in this industry a little bit. He says there's one place that they put batteries in the generating facility. Well, you can carry them in about 8 days, you know, and you carry a lot of them in.
Yeah.
But you have this gallery where you had, you know, steam turbine, you know, coal-fired steam turbine, and now you get this building. And it's on the grid.
So the good, this one, if it's quiet, it doesn't do anything. I think the range quite good. Was it Eversource wanted to put a file them down underneath the power line somewhere?
They, the property next to the substation, they wanted to put 100 of them there, 100 megawatts, which basically equates to 100 trailers. Yeah, so because it's next to the substation and then there's the power line going by there.
So that means if we make it a special permit, we can always restrict it to what is acceptable to that location. I mean, that was out in the middle of the woods and nobody saw it. Yeah, who cares?
Right, and say it's a Millennium, they stopped running and they put a bunch of them inside the building. You're not gonna see them, you wouldn't know what's in that building, so. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It is still a special permit process, so the board will have the purview to say, no, that's too much for that parcel, cut it down to 20 or whatever, you know, you think is appropriate.
No, did we limit the amount of the battery storage at the sites of the solar fields?
Yeah.
That's all been limited.
It's limited to, as I recall, like 1 megawatt of batteries for every 2 megawatts of solar.
So for these battery storage, I assume we go for the same decommissioning regulations that we have for.
That's, we established that policy when we did the whole thing with 0 point, which has now been upheld in court,
It was
so,
upheld in court.
yeah, so.
We don't have a threshold that says residential versus commercial. In terms of megawatts.
So your 5 megawatt limit is to commercial solar, fields, large solar arrays. And you're also bumping up against the total number of fields allowed in town third.
Well, I see you're talking about battery, well, battery storage, like somebody has it at their house, which is becoming more common.
It says right here, residential energy storage. Or should we, yeah, sorry, it's a Y.
So
I
that could be
apologize.
So that,
any size.
right, it's at somebody's house if you have it for your personal use.
Well, I will tell you from the building code fire regulations, there are limits in those regulations on the residential side, based on its location. In the house, in the basement, in the attached garage, or in the unattached facility. So it's an economic study. You know, it's what is, you know, they're not cheap. Tesla Powerwall is north of $20,000 plus installation.
Did go to the battery down on the array?
Not, no. But there are a few in town.
Is there a permit for a residential solar panel?
Yes.
Is there a permit for residential battery
Yes.
storage? There is? For residential battery storage?
It's governed by the electric code and the building code and the fire code.
So they have to pull an electrical permit,
Yeah.
but it's not called a storage permit, it's just a
No.
building.
Like the building permit for with electrical work associated.
So that covers it. Yeah.
So if the board's comfortable, because it's a special permit that we
Yeah.
can pick and choose what is appropriate for a particular property, then we don't need to address it. So,
Is the property commercial or-
yeah, I mean, the type of application we're gonna see are gonna be all the commercial projects, but they are becoming, Kurt knows as well, that we've been approached.
So we're
For a
gonna
few
change
different
that to
places.
commercial energy storage on CVs. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
it's-
gonna add CV?
We were gonna, I thought the intent was to add CB to allow energy storage in the CB
I
zone.
thought that's what was being requested too, is to open up CB to commercial energy storage, so we could tap in on some of the properties along
Route
169.
20 and
Yeah.
169.
Special
Plus a
permit.
special permit.
Yeah, Gabe, can you change that on, it's number 6W on the CV, make that a special permit from an N.
Of course.
Thank you.
Is everybody okay with that?
Oh, yeah, mine's handwritten.
Custom. Custom.
Not my right.
So, yeah, any other changes to the energy? Sorry, I didn't catch all the conversation. Just, I can't hear everything. Is there any other changes to the energy storage side of things that you'd like to see?
No, we discussed that, but I think we're okay with the way it was.
Yeah, I think it was
Okay,
just the
great.
amount, so.
Okay. And I did find actually those district definitions that Ron worked on. So I can put those together in warrant friendly language. It has the strike throughs and everything. So I can put those together in warrant friendly language for the next meeting.
You know, if Gabe, if you could send that over, like whatever you have right now, because I'd like Kurt to also take a look at it, because he's the one that has to sometimes struggle with it to figure out
Of
what
course.
it means in English, so.
Yeah, of course. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, not the second, but I mean, like, you know, soon, so that we can have, he can take a look at it before our public hearing to make sure that.
Of course.
Yeah, is there anything further you came up with.
Well, I have a bunch of, and I didn't participate in all the
Yes.
discussions. and
Yeah, it's
everything.
fine.
But if we look at the proposed use table, so residential uses number 2H. 1 and 2 family dwellings, a mix of residential and business uses.
Yeah.
What is it? So are you saying that if I was, so
Mixed use residential, apartments upstairs and, well, if it's 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Yeah, ice cream below, apartment upstairs. Ice cream, something like that.
okay, so
3-decker with a hairdressing facility on the first floor.
that's different than a home occupation. Well, if we took up the whole floor, then I guess it would be a home occupation.
Yeah. The owner of that facility may not live there.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I looked at this sort of quickly. You have a bunch of daycare center, adult daycare.
Yeah, that's one thing I had a question on. We have a daycare center and then a family daycare center.
Yes.
That was the only difference I can think was one of them like in a house and another one was not.
No, because there's a lot of adult daycare. That's just
Well,
not common.
No, I'm.
Well, so
going
you've
with
got, I was
family
gonna say, if you look
daycare.
at 3, B, C, and
It's a-
D.
It's a size thing, I believe. So a family daycare home,
Also,
um,
family daycare,
it's-
okay, you're right.
it's under 6 children for a family daycare home, and then a normal daycare center would be 6 or more. So it could be like something in a like in a resident, like a traditionally
That's
residential
the
facility.
definitions. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't see a definition.
For family daycare home.
Family daycare.
Yeah, it's family daycare home.
But I don't see what an adult daycare is.
Daycare center adults. it's under.
Yeah, I can change the definition so that it's all in the same chunk. So it's daycare. I can make it.
Very helpful. It's group
Start with daycare.
care,
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah, I can make it
daycare.
Yeah, I can make it daycare center family or something.
Daycare center family, daycare center adult.
Okay.
Group residences, general or limited. Group homes under certain regulations are exempt from zoning.
Like,
Smart housing.
okay.
Okay, we have 2 empty facilities in town because their leases let up.
Empty.
And we have 2 new facilities in town, and they're protected under federal statute as long as they're a license by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under a certain section.
Mhm.
There's one on Burlingame Road, I bet you didn't even know was there.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yep.
Okay. There's one on.
J. Davis Road.
Jay Davis.
Right.
Yep.
Hardly know they're there.
Correct.
And they replaced the 2 that were out, or there were 2 out on, one was on Bayless Road and the other one was out on Ramshorn. They build them, they lease them to the state.
And then they can't find
Well,
vendors to go in
the
and run.
the developer made his money
Mhm.
and the state paid for it out of operational costs instead of capital costs. And now they're for sale. I had a family ask about one of them because they have some disabled children and it would be perfect for them. I said,
Right.
yeah, great, you can do it. So you just have to be careful about that, those,
Okay.
So it's still not a bad thing to have it defined in here and regulation, it's. the
well,
exemption.
yeah, we might want to look carefully at what, that you try and regulate something that's.
Well, if they fall under the mass guidelines and they show like we're covered because we're registered, then okay, we're
Yeah.
problem solved. We don't get involved. Yeah.
Just wanted to point that out.
Is there, that's a good point, but is there anything else that trumps or overrides our,
Well, I'm sort of working my way through the list here. So you got down into recreational uses, yeah, okay, a bunch of stuff, racetrack. Yeah, we added racetrack.
So that's no end.
Okay, but is that horse racing? Is that motor vehicle racing?
It's not motor vehicle, it's something. for
Jack,
sure.
any tract of land which is used for the purpose of any motorized vehicle racing, horse racing, dog racing taking place outdoors.
I think the whole idea was to be able to regulate a racetrack. As a result of like the discussions, the application tonight.
Okay, so now jump back up to riding stables and our boarding horses. So riding stables and horses are an agrarian activity protected by 48, section 3, exemption so-and-so. So if you are, we have some riding stables in town that have riding stable licenses, riding stable instructors. They are exempt from zoning on a parcel of 5 acres or more.
But I don't know if that's true in Mass, but in other states I've been in, riding stables are, but boarding is not, because boarding is a business. And it doesn't fall under the right to farm and agriculture uses.
Use them for riding stable, also sometimes called the boarding stable.
And riding and or boarding.
I mean, most boarding stables have a riding ring that goes with them, but if you're specifically boarding horses, that's a business.
separate stable from boarding, riding, stable from boarding, from a riding.
So what is the zoning then? Do we care for both either?
Special permit all across the board except family. Village, IP, and DEP.
Auction galleries, next page.
Yep.
You may want to
State.
consider defining auction gallery. We had an interesting interpretation. A nice lawyer was trying to sway me one way and I'm going, no. No. But I think what we mean and what I said it meant was like a barn auction gallery, of consumer goods or the like. Those vehicles.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I thought we had something in here for vehicle auction. Because we did discuss that.
Yeah,
That was,
we did.
that was kind of something that.
We did.
Do we have vehicle auction house in here?
I
or-
thought there was somehow we
We did address it. I may have neglected to include it in this version. I apologize. But I can find that definition. But I think we did make the distinction basically between vehicle auctions and other types of auctions was the main thrust of it. So
Know what the common interpretation of auction gallery. And, work hard on that one.
Right, because what if a used car lot says, come on in and place a bid for a car?
All right, well, yeah, but yeah, I think, and my argument was that was the sale of used cars.
By auction, that's
Yeah.
that's
the method. But-
right.
But
I
they were
agree, it should be a pass than just a used car sale. No matter the method.
Bed and breakfast is. Okay, there you go. You got my take on that.
Yeah, we struggled with that too.
That's a very, so there's a case out of Lee Lennox somewhere over there where they had some regulation on and what the current turbine is Airbnb. It's like, so what? I remember going to a B&B and we called up on the phone.
Yeah.
It just changed how we reservation. And there's some differentiation came into this from the fact that people were doing Airbnbs as a whole, that's what the building was.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a rental house. That's an apart, that's a hotel motel thing, as opposed to someone who has who has guests over. What the building code struggles and zoning officials struggle with is, Airbnb.
I'm going away for a week and I rent my house out type.
Yeah, so what's the difference if Bill comes over to my house and stays there and he gives me a gift?
That's a tough one to deal with,
I'm just cautious of that.
If somebody wanted to like be above board and actually apply for it, that'd be one thing, but I bet it happens more often than we're even aware of.
It's the
Airbnb.
instance that The house, they buy it and they just never live it. So it's a non-owner, living, non-owner occupied rental. Then we might,
Short-term
yeah,
rental.
by the day and weekend, then we might want
So do we have a definition for bed and breakfast and how is it
Yeah,
defined?
that's right, yeah.
Is it defined correctly?
Residential districts for dwellings in the non-residential districts and the renting of rooms and furniture meals for not more than 4 persons shall be permitted, provided the same is conducted and managed by a resident owner of the premises.
So you'd have to live there to be able to do that. So
So
resident.
now, when you say it's an SP.
Because they gotta show, the intent is they have to show the board that they're, complying with the regular bylaw.
what if they want to rent out the
Yeah.
basement?
Sort of like daycare center. We have this thing that, and this has been a discussion. I have this discussion with people with some low-level activities that require site plan review, and I think we've grown in our acceptance of a lesser drawing than the $1,500 single page. We hired someone because I'm having a few dogs in my yard. Yeah. So do we have to do that for every home daycare? Does the person need a $1,500 plan, or do they just go and do it? We don't know what happens. And the same thing with a bed and breakfast. Do we need a $1,500 plan, or do we, so maybe, that's part of, yes, this works, but how it's mechanically handled might be.
Oh, maybe
So
we
what
can
happens
look at
when there's a
that
problem
because
with that? I rent my house out to 50 college kids every weekend. How do you,
Okay,
how do you govern
right,
that? And,
Right, I got it, but I'm also saying the person who wants to play nice is being burdened with potentially, because it's a special permit and the application rules say that it has to be on this size paper, drawn by a registered design professional.
Well, maybe we can look at that and possibly amend the special permit application unless the board deems it's not necessary or some language that we put in there on the special permit application, because if we do have that person where
Or
this
any
is,
site plan application.
yeah.
Maybe craft something that says.
Well, it maybe that's the way to do it, but like, there's certain times where just, a site plan for a project is overkill, like the Beagle Club was, they're building sand volleyball courts. That's overkill for a formal site plan. So we come up with a way that to give the board, an applicant can ask the board, it's like, do I really have to do a site plan for this?
Allow some procedure to waive the formality of it. So do we have that, or can we do that, or?
Yeah, the board can do that. Well, but on the same note, if you get an existing house, but if you get an existing house and you want to change the use of that house, you're not really changing anything that's going to kick it to conservation. You're asking. Well, no, I understand that. So we have to be careful of what we're allowing. Yeah, what we're.
only hope. I can only.
But it's not, it's bad for the
Right.
town. It's bad for-
And we had this discussion in the pre-development meeting the other day because stormwater regulations are taking over and making it difficult. It's a state law,
It's a state law.
state and federal law, and it's making it difficult for small scale development to be afforded.
Dave, did you have something you wanted to say? You sound like you.
Yeah, I found the definition changes for the districts and I just put them together in a document. So I'm sending that over to Randy right now.
Okay,
So it's sections A and E of 3.1. It looks like the main changes were to, obviously there's like R60, and then some changes to RSE, and BEP, and they're all pretty minor. But I think, so significant enough to warrant the change.
do that with the board and Kurt so that everybody has a chance to look at it before the public hearing.
Yeah,
Because we can iron out the details at the public hearing, so.
yeah. But if there's any other districts, I mean, we maybe make notes, and if there's any other districts you think need definition changes, let me know tonight, or, we can discuss at the hearing.
I think back to Randy's point, it's up to us to then special permit, then we have to make some type of rule in here to say above a certain financial burden or below, like.
Yeah, well, I think the intent of the bed and breakfast is actually the location of the bed and breakfast. If it's say on North Main Street where there's only a couple of houses and, it's a lot of commercial area, not so bad. But if you're out on Dresser Hill Road and amongst a bunch of other residential homes, that might not be the appropriate location for it. And I think that's how the idea that we had a special permit. And then if we look at, okay, it's a special permit, but we're not going to make you jump through all the hoops as a formal application would. We somehow come up with something that doesn't make it so burdensome for the applicant. Because the idea that why we did the special permit on bed and breakfast is, some locations in the agricultural zone might be perfectly fine. Some locations you don't want it there. So in all the zones, that's why it gave the board the opportunity to decide if it was the appropriate location for that. And then we can come up with, if we want to look at limiting the amount of information we need via a site plan or something.
Their house, it's already there.
No, but I mean, if I lived next to it and I had a rental house where had different people coming and going every day, guests from out of state and everything, probably drive me crazy, so that's kind of how you have to look at it.
So I had a comment on the whole special permit. I understand that you want to have the ability to judge the location and intensity of the activity. Now, when you have special permit in business enterprise park, there are some criteria listed what has to be met. Like that, I thought that when we were doing the height thing, I was talking to Gene Luban over in Sturbridge. They have no height limitation at all. And height is by special permit. And the applicant has to prove, for a commercial building that they absolutely have the height, need the height, and it's appropriate for the area. So I'm suggesting to the board that, like when you have in DEP, what the special permit criteria is that instead of, it's hard for the applicant to guess what I'm trying to aim for if you don't have a criteria for what the special permit is. And it needs to maybe say, well, is the parcel large enough to support the activity? Is the access to the parcel, is the neighborhood, is this going to be any detriment to the neighborhood? So you have some criteria to weigh these special permits against, so that it's not arbitrary and capricious, which is what the lawyer that's gonna sit in here said. Well, what's the difference between this one and that one? And you just don't like my client, and that's
Not zoning via special permit.
right.
I think what we were going for is, if you look at our zoning districts, they're so broken up that you've got BEP right next to a residential with an IG on the other side of it. And what might be appropriate here may not be appropriate here. And how do you, we need to do major work there anyways.
Right. But that gives, sometimes lists and lists of regulations are tough, but lists, you get good site plans for major projects because you have a defined list of what needs to be on that plan. And if you're applying for a special permit, maybe there should be a defined list or like I say, a criteria that you're measuring against. So it's not. So I got onto that independent. I know it's 9:30 and we all want to go home. So on 6 independent storage areas and parking areas, I see that you made them that they're a P in the RSE and NB.
6 what?
6 communication, transportation, and public utility uses. J.
Yeah.
I want to have a standalone parking lot in an RSE and an NB zone. I mean, the NB zones are about this big. Just a
I
thought.
mean, that one's written as is right now today, isn't it? This isn't any
Yeah,
change.
that's the original one.
Yes, okay.
You're changing things.
No, I know, but no, it doesn't make sense.
So
Yeah.
NB might go to an N. Is that what you're suggesting?
In
Yeah.
RSE too, because pretty much RSE is just downtown city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not much. It's pretty much the mill. Just the mill.
Do you want me to change that to an N?
Change RSE and NB to N.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
which one is that?
6J.
Oh, J?
6J.
Yeah.
Oh, got it, okay.
The next page. Public storage areas or buildings such as those for road, sand, and salt and sand for municipal vehicles. We have another line that says with a P that any municipal use voted at town meeting is allowed in every zone.
Yeah.
So I can vote to build a salt shed at town meeting in any zone with a P. But I have ends in
BEP.
That to me is a conflict.
Yeah.
Those are two totally different things too. Public storage area or a building for salt and sand.
But for
Two totally different things.
it's a
Well, public
municipality
storage
across the board.
area.
This is interesting. No, that doesn't.
It doesn't really say that.
It doesn't specify municipal.
Oh,
It just says. a
Oh,
public
municipal
storage
vehicle.
area
Yeah, I mean, look, Larry McKissick has it on Route 20.
or salt.
that's not a public.
It's,
Private stuff.
but it's holding salt.
Done by the public or municipality.
Yeah,
So you're gonna try to figure out what they were trying to get at with this one?
Yeah.
I
A municipal shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a great big salt shed up at Old Town Road. Old Town Road.
So you wanna just strike that? Do we even need that?
Well, no, but you have a valid point there. If you're gonna call, if some business was going to stockpile salt for all the little pickup trucks that run around, then, okay, that makes sense to me now, thank you.
so maybe just taking out, say, storage areas or buildings such as those for road salt and sand
and municipal vehicles, right? So that's where I get into the municipal.
Well, I take out just for salt and sand and then cut out and municipal vehicles. Just, take out the
Okay.
last. Take,
We have lots that sell soil and sand, or small.
So do we want to also cut public, just to make it clear that we're talking about private uses?
Yeah. Cut that out, Gabe, the public.
So right now I just have,
CVS, is that public or is that private?
private.
Well, it's, no, he sells it, so is it public?
it's private, if it's a private business.
The town could buy salt from them, but it's
Yeah.
private. Any private contractor could go over there and buy salt or sand. Yeah.
So do we want to change this to storage areas or buildings, and then instead of such as, just for road salt and sand, or like, and like,
Well, that's why I was wondering if you just cut out the word public and then cut out and municipal vehicles, and just leave the middle section.
okay,
But it's permitted everywhere. Why would you not permit it in?
Well, it's a site plan.
mm-hmm.
So get rid of public and get rid of municipal vehicles.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, because then the next one is sown sand and gravel processing, which, okay, that's processing, not storage, but I mean,
That's ancillary though. to it.
yeah,
So I have that circle too, because back to the thing, a community business zone was defined as a zone for the convenience goods of the traveling public and the community. So why was site plan review need to allow a sand and gravel processing operation on a key piece of property on Route 1?
Well, I think that's probably what, I wasn't here at the time, but there is a key piece of property doing that on Route 20. So maybe that's geared around that piece of property.
Well, it's a pre-existing non-
Right, but,
it has no site plan.
But it makes a non-conforming condition conforming because it's zone CB.
But if
It still doesn't have a site plan. review.
No, I understand that, but
But why would you want to permit a new use in the community business zone?
I'm not saying it's appropriate. I'm
Change
saying
change
that might be why it
and-
got there.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, maybe, the only thing I
How
can
would you
think,
allow that?
I think of the two landscape supply facilities on Route 20. Let's just say they decide to start to process their own stone, their own crushed stone. They'd haul it in, process it there on site, and sell it to the customers. That's me thinking outside.
Yeah.
That's this.
Okay, well,
Correct.
but like I say, you have a dichotomy there.
Yeah.
You're allowing a heavy use
Yeah,
in a zone that's to provide the convenience goods for the traveling trout night, like.
yeah, but the only thing is like they use the stone for their landscaping at the house.
Mhm.
And other projects around the yard. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
We're spitballing back and
Yeah,
forth to
correct.
come to- come down and-
Absolutely, yeah.
So process is just not the right word. You give a cross for the screen. Project that you can probably eliminate that.
Why don't I process?
That, I would think those are both being, I would think both of those are covered under process.
It's a the process. So you're eliminating any of that, or
So, I mean, so what Kurt's kind of getting at is we've got some great commercial properties in community business zones that we're trying to promote retail sales of goods and things. And
Yeah.
is it really appropriate for a large crushing facility to be in that location? And does anybody want to
yeah.
see that?
So maybe like you said, it's the ones that are there are already pre-existing non-conforming. As long as they can operate to the end of time. But if we want to allow new ones, maybe the industrial zone, for instance, is the more appropriate zone for them.
No, it's CB.
And I
Okay.
think, you know, there is a IG zone, a place in IG zone that does some processing and stuff. And
Yeah.
will actually sell some of that material, but they sell
Process
it from the community. business. So
Yeah.
You don't actually do the manufacturing, the
Yeah.
processing, the screening.
Right,
whatever
which
you want to
somebody
call it.
could always do that as well.
Right,
So,
and
yeah,
that's the retail sales, which is the convenience of the public.
And that's no different from like a Home Depot, or it could be whatever.
Right.
I mean, you could have a small hardware store selling bags of gravel. Doesn't
yeah.
have to be piles of gravel.
Do an SP and DEP for that?
No, just leave it as
Was
is.
it-
Yeah, leave it
P
as-
And N for CB, because
Yeah.
that was a pages.
Yeah.
But CB to M, P where.
IG. That's
Yeah.
something.
And I'll look at the definition more in that.
All right.
Yeah, our intent, and if all goes well, that our April 6th meeting, we're gonna have the public hearing. It's already been noticed, so,
Right, you have the
So-
public hearing, take input from me, just like I'm part of the public.
yeah,
You can
we
say
can
make
amend
reasonable
anything.
changes, you know, as long as it's within the discussion, like with the date, definition.
Yeah, because they kept as far as the warrant goes and everything, he kept it kind of generalized to change, I can't remember exactly the language, but comprehensive change of the bylaws so that it's open-ended, so any amendments we do between now and whatever. Of course, Yeah.
It will be, no, it will be. Always-
You're in a
no,
fog.
That's the format, that's the format we've had to use.
Yeah.
So all the,
Well-
it follows that path, planning board articles, and then petitions articles.
hey, it worked for Amazon.
I
A
gave,
lot of it are after the school board, because the flooded from school money decisions, and everybody will leave right out.
Yeah,
Gabe, you have anything else?
No, so I'll just, I sent over the, like I said, I sent over the district definitions that looks like they were last looked at by Ron like about a year ago. So, take a look at those before I'll put them in like the sort of same warrant oriented language that I did for this one. I'll substitute the table for the one where it sort of tracks the changes better. And then also I'll change all the references to A to R60 on the table. And yeah, I think that's it from my notes tonight.
just think, Gabe, just one more meeting.
Oh yeah, hey, it's okay.
Go ahead, Kurt.
One of the things I noticed that you loaded up the definition with marijuana.
Yeah.
Is that a safe thing to do because of the Cannabis Control Commission definition?
I think Gabe actually looked at that, didn't you? With the definitions
did.
of marijuana?
Yeah, those definitions. So I tried to pull stuff that was relevant because there's a bunch of existing uses on the use table. I just kind of tried to pull stuff that was relevant and maybe future uses if it comes to that. Those are all pulled, I believe, from the Worcester zoning bylaws, and Worcester has pretty extensive marijuana dispensaries and that sort of thing. So it should be in line with everything from the CCC, though. Yeah, I mean, those rules kind of have been changed. Things do change, but I don't see any issues with those. That was more just to get those definitions on paper, and just because there's a lot of things, it's like 10, 15 things listed with no definitions related to marijuana. So
Yeah, and now that you added some of the new things that we haven't had to deal with yet, but the
Right.
river and everything
just to get
else.
ahead of it, and
Yeah.
if there's other uses that pop up, I'm sure they will. That can always be dealt with in the future.
Gabe, just as a reminder, don't forget a definition for auction galleries.
Right.
Well, awesome. All right, thank you.
Good thing. All right. Thank you.
See you another time. Thanks, Gabe.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
All right.
Good night.
Are you saying that Cannabis Control Commission has the whole pages of definition?
Oh, thank
There's
you.
a licensing agency, and they come up with all these definitions. So, are we we better serve
Yeah.
by.
By their
checking those
definitions, yeah.
definitions and saying, as defined by the Cannabis Control Commission.
Yeah.
If the Cannabis Control Commission changes the language,
Then we would have to change ours.
Yeah, we'll be, yeah, that's.
Forever beyond.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe put a line item, marijuana, see cannabis control definition.
Let's look at those definitions. Make sure that I would think they would have them, but
oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we in no case want to have any definitions. MGL has them anyway. Boarding house, so they already have other boarding house, and we shouldn't have a definition.
Unless it's a special. If you want to further define it for some specific reason, but, you know, and that's what happens in all regulations, right? All regulations assume the common meaning, Webster's dictionary usually underneath, unless specifically defined for that regulation. Lots of things. Zoning has some things like and one of the things I want to address with the board is motor vehicle. Right? We can have no more than 2 unregistered motor vehicle on a property or parts thereof.
how do you enforce that?
Well, what's the motor vehicle? Well, let's see. Let's start
It's
with
got no motor in
motor.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, those 8
Okay,
cars have
so
no
the guy's got
motors.
eight motor boats on trailers in his yard. Had one. How about just a bunch of trailers? It has no motor. Is it a motor vehicle? Well, under chapter 90 laws, it's probably a motor vehicle because it's defined as something that goes over the road as opposed to an excavator, which is prohibited from going over the road. So I think we need to.
Yeah, so an excavator is not.
But,
If I have 6
but on the
excavators
same
and
note,
buses,
you have a
that's-
loader and put a plate on that and drive it on the road.
Some loads.
Some loads, yeah,
Right,
so,
so that's one definition that I would like to work on and present something to the board. that We see it. We've had a couple of problem people and they have stuff. Neighbors don't like stuff, but I will defend your right to have stuff. That's great.
Too much.
Right, I know you have some other
All
business
right.
to take care of.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bob.
again, Kurt.
yeah,
for your input.
actually,
Yep.
we just have one other item, to deal with, or not to deal with, just announcement. The Board of Selectmen has requested us the planning board to meet with them. Basically, they have some announcements in reference to VGG that are favorable, but they also have some requests on where to go from here, basically. You know, the courts are pushing for a settlement. Attorney's not saying that's a good idea or not, but he wants to hear from the planning board and the Board of Selectmen in a mutual executive session to discuss what the options are and where to go from here.
April
So
12th.
that April 12th at their Board of Selectmen meeting.
I'm gonna try and get it before the meeting. Is everyone fine with that? How's that work out for time? Usually, what time did it select me? 6:30?
Yeah, they make it
I like to
6.
try and get it before. Right at the end of the meeting. Executive session, is everyone fine with that?
Oh, then,
Because I gotta talk to.
You want to meet
about
at
that.
6 for an executive session and
Yeah.
and then they can bring the meeting after.
Yeah.
Yeah, they-
I don't want to either. So that's what I'll have a full call discussion with the chairman. of the board of
Yeah,
selectmen to try and do that. See if they can, just to get it done and out of the way. Be different if we had a meeting that night too, and
If you don't,
Yeah, it's Dave McKay from,
why can't we do it?
Miracle
the-
Panel.
yeah, America.
Have their
Whatever
meeting
works out for
started
them, but yeah,
six
so-
Yeah,
with an executive session.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay,
Okay,
that way they can start the regular meeting at 6:30.
right,
all right.
that's okay with me.
Okay, I just want to run it. Let's see,
April 12th.
yeah,
Yeah, April 12th, because they gotta do it before the 19th. I think they have to be back in court on the 19th, so he has to go back to court with a decision. Yeah, he's gonna be at the meeting telling you what has transpired and where do you want to go from here?
All right, I'll let everyone know. I know discussion doesn't go on exactly what we're trying to do. I mentioned that to him tonight.
Yeah, and
He
if,
thought that wasn't a bad idea.
and if you talk to these,
Yeah.
whoever, yeah,
Talk to
the,
the chairman.
yeah, find out when it is. I have to notice for the meeting, for the
Correct. Yes.
executive
Yes.
session, yeah, for that, so. Once you fit, yeah, once you figure it out, so, yeah, because of course the whole board's invited. You might all want to attend. just to
Yeah,
hear
just
where
because of
you're
the,
at, if you have
the
time.
subject that it's. So, anyone have anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.